So, toxic versus healthy people. How is toxic and how do you know if somebody is healthy? So, I guess in the quote quote self-care community or in the mental health space or I guess in a lot of other places, a lot of focus is put on what toxic people are, what their traits are, what you need to look for in red flags, blah blah. It's very boring because the problem is that you're focusing now on the problem. In this video, what I want to cover is how to spot the green flags in somebody, how to spot if somebody's healthy, how to spot if somebody is worth your time. So we as human beings, and especially in homogenized collective society, always like focusing on the negative, on the problem, because it's just easier, right? But the short answer is that obviously whatever you focus on expands. So today I want to be covering the three major components of when somebody is healthy. What does it look like? How do you feel around that person? And what should you be looking for? So, one of the first things about people that are healthy is that number one, they know how to communicate. Okay. Now, sometimes I'm personally guilty of this. I can fall short, like I may not have updated somebody for a long period of time about what's going on or what's happening or blah blah. That's usually because I have too much on my plate, and when I want to talk to somebody, I want to be in a good frame of mind, a healthy frame of mind. I want to be able to give them the cliff notes and the basics of everything that's going on, and that's the imperative part. Communication is a very important thing. This is not to say that you need to be in someone's pocket all the time, someone's WhatsApp chat all the time, somebody's phone log all the time. No, but you can just drop a message like this is what's going on, I'm not going to be available for a while, or I've had a lot on my plate, blah blah, this, that. The very first thing that toxic people take away from you is healthy communication. It now becomes too much if you ask them for something, because if they communicate with you on a healthy basis, what you are going to find out is that they're a lying, nasty trash bag, basically, a piece of shit, who should not be worth any of your time. So what they'll do is that they will they'll mess with the details. They'll tell you something else. Like I said, they'll gaslight. If anybody's toxic, they're gonna gaslight you. If somebody is healthy, you're gonna have transparent communication. Their boundaries are gonna be very clear, and it's gonna be very joyous. It's gonna be very, very, very easy. Like, I remember how many toxic people I dealt with when a friend of mine didn't answer my WhatsApp chat for like 5 hours, and he texted me back saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've given you a late reply," and it kind of took me off surprise for a while. I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't even consider that late," but wow, that's nice. And I also remember the first time it happened. It was a long time ago, and it made me realize. And when you get around healthy people, you realize how sick a lot of people are. So communication is one of the first tenets you want to look for in somebody. If they know how to healthily communicate, if they know how to bring up something, and when you communicate with a toxic individual, it will always be slander. It will always be they're attacking you. You can never do anything right. In their eyes, they're God. You can never do anything right with them. So healthy communication that makes you feel calm and makes you feel safe, that's the first tenet. Number two, one of my favorites. Healthy people take responsibility for their actions. Something went wrong, they have a plan. Something went wrong, blah blah. There's something, again, they'll communicate, they'll let you know. There was a lady that came and ordered a paperback winning book from me. And I remember I had sold so many copies, I didn't have any like to mail to her. And the cutoff point was going to be at like a certain date. And I said to her, hi, I hope you don't mind waiting for about a couple of days. The warehouse is shipping everything, and as soon as it's with me, I will message you, and I'll, take a picture of the tracking, or, send you whatever it is. And she said, that's fine. And she said she had ordered things from people and they just never communicated. That is a massive one. Like, even number two, responsibility ties into communication. If you are a responsible individual, if you are, which I'm going to tie into number three when I come up with this, everything's going to be very easy for you because you are already at that number three stage that I'm going to cover. Hence, you communicate, and hence you take responsibility for your actions. And that number three, and that's probably the primary thing, is maturity. So it comes as no surprise that most people in Western society are very childish, and they are kept childish intentionally, immature, almost like emotionally and mentally arrested. Like, they're probably frozen at the age of their trauma. I just think nobody really has an excuse. I am a survivor of extreme levels of trauma, like extreme complex levels of trauma, that the type of trauma that most people just, they don't survive that trauma, let alone look like what I do and get to where I am. And I often think that people, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning when he was driving in the car, and he just said that, people are always looking for a way out. He's very responsible and mature to start with. Obviously, that's why I'm friends with him. But the interesting part is that the people are always looking for that way out. They are always looking for to pass the buck. Somebody else has to be responsible. If they've gone and I guess got something, they are very quick to blame people. People who are childish and immature, they are in a victim mentality, right? So they will very quickly blame people. They won't put the effort. Somebody can say this car doesn't drive properly, but in actual fact, it's their driving skill that's the issue. They have a lack of driving skill, if that makes sense. So they're not very good at driving, but they'll blame the car. And then they'll go through 15 cars and it will be the same nonsense over and over again, because it's them with the issue. So maturity is a big one. Maturity is the ability to understand and comprehend delayed gratification. What is it to deal with things in a mature fashion? I still remember a woman said to me that, I don't like men that apologize too quickly. Like, what am I going to do with him now? I just didn't know what to say by this point. I was like, I don't know. I don't deal with men who are children, so men who are immature, I just don't bother with them, basically. So they're not men in my eyes, so they're still children, so I'm not bothering with them. And you get a lot of people who, when you're immature, your propensity is towards drama. It's towards bullshit, nonsense, so to speak. So a healthy person is mature. They're gonna deal with things in a mature fashion. They're not gonna jump to conclusions like that's the only exercise they've got in the entire month aside the gym. They probably don't even go there. But they're not gonna assume. They're gonna ask first and be like, okay, I just want to clarify everything with you, and then let's sit and find out if it's just toxic nonsense or there's a genuine mistake. With healthy people, it's always going to feel easy. I tell people this all the time, that if you have experienced a lot of toxic encounters with individuals, if you have experienced abuse, if you experienced trauma, if you've experienced something that's emotionally damaged you or mentally damaged you a lot, what you are looking for, and the number one thing you are looking for, is safety. How are you going to find safety in a person? They will be very calm. Even when they're pissed off, even when they're angry. Even when I'm pissed off and angry, like, people are very surprised. Like, people are like, oh, you have the type of personality, I'm surprised you didn't hit somebody. I'm not that type of person. I'm just not. But that's more to do with the spirits I work with and the type of energy people might feel from me. But I would never do that with somebody. And the point that I'm trying to make over here is that trying to work out issues, people just go into like meltdowns. Again, it's a lack of maturity. The toxic people generally have experienced very little difficulty in their life because what they're very good at is making other people's lives difficult. That's it. They get everybody else to carry their burden. They don't want to carry any of their own. They're children, basically. Like, we can excuse little 5-year-olds. We can't excuse 40-year-old men, who have 5-year-old trapped inside, desperate to get out. And you have to remember that in order to live a peaceful life, now I know that not everybody wants to live a peaceful life. Some people love drama, they love insanity, and that's fine. That's not a problem with me. But personally, I like living a very peaceful life. I like living a very solid and stable life with people, both men and women, in every aspect, fashion and tangent and tenet and bezel, I guess, that I can rely on. Reliance is a huge one with people that are healthy. If they tell you they're going to do something, they will do it. And if they've not got around to doing that, they will do it. You don't have to chase them up. One of the biggest factors about people that are healthy in today's world is that you don't have to chase them for anything. You don't have to chase them for anything because they're not children. I go back to the same thing. People who are immature, even past a certain age, they're not going to change. They're the hand of God is not going to strike them. I mean, I don't know, I'm not God, so I mean, I don't know. They might be walking one day, we might be lucky, lightning strikes them, and they're good. But for the most part, once people have hit a certain plateau, they've hit a certain tableau, they've hit a certain age in their life, they're no. If they're not mature and they cannot get their stuff together, it's just a no. Just leave them where you found them. 3 things: maturity, communication, responsibility. Under that umbrella, you're gonna get things like conscientiousness, reliability, safety, durability. I know that sounds very boring to a lot of people watching this. To me, that's not boring. That's my idea of heaven and fun. Like, I called somebody, they answered the phone, fantastic. I called somebody, they came to pick me up. I called somebody, they did this for me. Or I did this, somebody's done this, somebody's done that. Chasing people around is very draining. It's very narcissistic. It's very annoying. And what happens is that what they do is toxic people condition you to give yourself away to them, to constantly give, so they're in that receiving. So you don't know how to receive anymore. You have no comprehension of what that even feels like. Healthy people will never shame you. They won't laugh at you for something. Some of the things people used to tell me when I was younger, even when my own age was young, my biological, chronological age was young, I used to look at these people and be like, how stupid and childish are you? I used to remember having a friend, and she suffered with a condition that I don't know the full name of it. And this is probably about 10 years ago. And men made fun of her, women made fun of her, and I said, they're just idiots. I just said to her, I've never made fun of you for anything. When you're childish and you're just immature and stupid and you're still on fuck shit, as I usually call it, then you're gonna find any stupid thing to entertain you. A lot of things that people find funny when they laugh, I just look at them with a blank face. What's funny? I didn't even laugh at this when I was 15. Like, maybe I'm just old. Like, I just laugh. I'm like, I know I have 6 placements in Capricorn. Like, it ages you quickly in terms of not physically, but maturity wise. I don't find that funny. I'm not a bully and I'm not a coward, so I don't find making fun of people funny. It's very hurtful and cruel to do that to somebody. I myself have been the recipient of a lot of bullying by very, very violent individuals, very toxic individuals, jealous individuals. So it's a bit of a series that I create in terms of what does a healthy person look like. You feel calm with a healthy person. Toxic people, the number 1 red flag, the big ass red flag, like the color of this car downstairs, you see that car, the number 1 red flag that I tell people about toxic people. You have anxiety around them. They give you mental levels of anxiety. Every time I've dealt with somebody that's toxic, I can barely breathe around that person. Like, my heart starts pounding, my hands and feet swell up. I'm like, oh God. Because it's dirty energy that's trying to come into my body, and I'm like, no, get out. The level of anxiety that I have met in some people is just frightening, and I'm just like, I don't want to be near you, physically near you, let alone sit or stand next to you. Just go away. Just leave me alone. Anxiety is the number one toxic red flag. Job interview anxiety, run. Date anxiety, run. There's normal nervousness where you just want to make a good impression to that person, so you might be tiny a bit, anxious. There is crippling toxic anxiety. What toxic people do is that this anxiety that they carry inside them, what they do is they project it onto you, essentially. Now, what happens is that when you give them your energy, your time, they feed you a very calming energy. It's a very calming, like, this borderline going into narcissism now. But the point is that anytime that I've been around somebody toxic and I have felt like they're very anxious, and they want to get me to a point where I give them energy quickly so that it calms me down. One of the biggest examples of this anxiety laden thing is your smartphone, this thing I'm actually recording on. its screen is crystal liquid and it touches your fingerprints that connect to your brain. So if you don't regularly disconnect your brain through your fingers, long story, it's a ritual, by the way, what you're gonna do is you're gonna constantly I just need to touch my phone, I just need to touch it. It's like an addiction, because via your fingers, your mind is actually glued to it now, and it becomes an addiction. Most people have a ridiculous amount of anxiety because of this phone. This phone is crazy. I don't touch the phone if I don't need to. I prefer working on my Mac for a very good reason. So I just want to make it very clear to people that you have 3 categories for healthy people. Number 1, they're mature. They're an adult. They're not adult children, or they're not they don't say things like adulting and stuff like that. We're not children. I'm not a child. I don't deal with people. I'm in my 30s. I do not deal with people who are still mentally children. I don't deal with them. I'm polite with them. I don't deal with them. If I want to deal with children, there's a kindergarten next to me. I can go and sit there. So that is very intimidating to somebody who has a childish mind. They just think she's too much. That's where the too much always comes from. It's not the fact that, you're this, you're that. You're just immature. And when somebody is immature and you are mature, don't be friends with that person. Don't bother with them. Don't do anything with them. They'll never value you. They'll never see you. They can't even see themselves. And they'll never take you seriously. And they'll always forfeit something very good, very healthy, in exchange for something that's just nonsense, because they themselves have a trash-based mentality. Number 1, like I've said, maturity. Healthy people are always mature. They do the work on themselves. They're willing to look at themselves. They're willing to self-reflect. There's responsibility, right? Number 2, responsibility. If they go wrong somewhere, they let you know. If there is a delay, they let you know. Right? They take responsibility for their actions. They don't just run away. They don't victim blame. They don't hide, blah, blah. Number 3, as always my favorite, they communicate. You don't have to wonder like, oh my God, where did they go? Why don't they talk to me? What's happened? Blah, blah. They just let you know what's going on, basically. They communicate with you. They'll let you know what's happening. They're running late, they'll let you know. They're going to pay you late, they'll let you know. If there's anything that's come up, they'll let you know. Toxic people are not into the habit of letting you know anything. That's how they maintain control over you. They depolarize your chakras and then they maintain control over you. So healthy people, you can never ever have a healthy conversation with toxic people. Don't even try it. When toxic people try and speak to me, I am always nasty, rude, and violent to them. So if people have experienced me as nasty, rude, and violent, it's the barrier. You're not getting past that barrier. You can call me names, you can say I'm disrespectful, you can say whatever it is. You will not get a healthy version of me. I'm not obliged and required to give you a healthy version of me. So just remember, 3 green flags for healthy people. Number 1, they're mature. They're not children stuck in adult bodies. Number 2, they're responsible. They take responsibility for their actions. They don't blame other people. They always have contingency plans. They always have things that they plan ahead mentally. And number 3, of course, my favorite, they communicate. And when people communicate and make it easier for you, and it's not one big mind fuck, it's like breathing oxygen after being lied to and told that carbon monoxide is healthy for you. So remember, take these 3 key green flags, enjoy your life, and make sure that with these 3 green flags, pit everybody against these flags. Maturity, responsibility, communication. If they cannot even give you this, they cannot even give you 1, because all 3 of them come in the same category. Somebody's mature, they'll be responsible, they'll communicate well, they'll be reliable, they'll be a trustworthy person. You can trust that person. If your spirit does not feel good around a person, they're toxic. Let them go.